Good afternoon, Year 10. Welcome to another lesson on speeches. Just a do now on the last lesson, the judicial speech we were looking at, which is to do with law and judgment, if you remember. What makes Atticus's speech judicial? That's the speech that we read in that lesson. And what part of Atticus's speech generated most emotion in your opinion? You can look at your books for the answer to that, and I'll give you 5 minutes to do it and then go on to the next slide. Our learning objective today is to explore and understand the difference between emotional and factual language, and really to see how they can be mixed together to to have a big impact in speeches. So your title is Understanding and Using Emotional and Factual Language. Today's lesson is going to be based around a speech by a young lady called Greta Thunberg. I think she's a year older than you. You may have heard of her, and most young people have. She's the young climate activist who's got everybody quite rightly focused on climate change. So I want you to just just so we get our minds in the right places, make a list of as many environmental issues we are facing today as you can think of. When you've done that, which of those do you think most directly affects you? And I'll give you 10 minutes to do that. Then go on to the next slide. Well, I've put a little link on here about Greta Thunberg, an introduction to the young lady, and it just kind of shows you why she has risen to fame in the way that she has. I mean, she's only 16. She's not doing anything. She's turned up at the right time. Social media being what it is, young people that is, can get excited and get connected about real issues, and she's sort of riding that wave, and she's aware of that. A lot of people find her irritating. I, for one, really like her because she's a stroppy teenager. Yeah, fair enough, and that's what a lot of people say. But at least she's stroppy about something important. All teenagers are can be fairly stroppy, not all the time, but at least she's stroppy about something that's important. Anyway, have a look at that. That's 5 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next slide. Right, the speech I will be attaching to class charts, and I've also copied it onto the next slide. And what I want you to do is highlight the emotive arguments, and then in another colour highlight any factual arguments, facts and statistics, etc. So anything that's emotional in one colour and anything that's facts and statistics in another. If you can't print it out, just copy the relevant parts into your books in a couple of lists there. And we'll go on to the next slide, and I'll read it. Greta Thunberg to a climate change address to the UN. My message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You've stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can think about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency, but no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees of warming and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tonnes of your carbon dioxide out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us. We who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees global temperature rise, the best odds given by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the world had 420 gigatons of carbon dioxide left to emit on January the 1st, 2018. Today that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solution? With today's emission levels, that remaining carbon dioxide budget will be completely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you, and if you choose to fail us, I say, we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming, whether you like it or not. Thank you. Now, I'm going to find this one piece of emotional language in here and one piece of factual language, and then I'm going to leave you to go over it and find as many as you can of your own. So, first of all, let's look for something emotional. Well, there's, the whole thing is sort of underpinned by emotion, isn't it? But I mean, straight away, how dare you? That's quite powerful, isn't it? That's an emotional thing to say in a speech. It's another thing, isn't it? I wonder if you can tell me what that is. How dare you? Think of your persuasive devices. What is that? That's direct address, isn't it? The second person. How dare you? So that's an emotional piece. And let's get another colour. And well, we got here. So just keep it simple. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us. That's a piece of factual. So you got your emotional in yellow and your factual in red there. Now I'll leave you to have a look at that and then go on to the next slide. Now, a good way of making this table out and getting to grips with what's emotional and what's factual is to read aloud. You don't have to do this, but this is the way that I've always found it works for me. Read through the speech, but only read the emotional part aloud, and then fill in the part on the left-hand side there, Greta's emotional language. So I've put, I highlighted some direct address, didn't I? So Greta's use of direct address was powerful because, then say why, and then read it again, reading through all the factual language. Greta's use of facts was effective because, and I highlighted some facts for us there. So find as many as you can. You need to at least 4 of each, 4 bits of emotional language and 4 bits of factual language, and you've got 15 minutes to do that. Combining emotion and facts, that's what she did in the speech when she delivered it to the UN. It's on the link there. I won't play it now, obviously, you can play it yourself. And just I want one sentence from you that says, what effect does the combination of emotion and facts have on the success of Greta's speech? And do you think her delivery was effective? How could she have improved it? So answer those 3 questions in full sentences, please, and you've got 10 minutes to do that. Right, now I want you to write 1 page of a speech, or if you would like the whole speech, which would be 2 pages, to fellow students arguing the importance of being environmentally friendly. Now you need to spend, as we know, about 10 minutes making a plan, so you'll need some evidence. You can make up some statistics, year 10. I'm not expecting you to go off and research climate change, but you can make up some evidence. Remember, how will you open and close? Greta opened up there with some direct address, which is very powerful, and when you close it, you want it to end powerfully. People tend to remember the last part of speeches, so you want it to end powerfully. Think about what language techniques will you use. Will you use any similes or metaphors? You want plan each paragraph. You want a topic sentence for each paragraph, so you know what the paragraph will be about. And always remember spelling, punctuation and grammar. Anyway, listen, have a go at that. I would love to see these speeches. Send them to me. My email address, as ever, is on the class charts and the lessons on YouTube. So enjoy that, and I'll see you tomorrow for some poetry.